regardless of what we've done to, the format of the podcast, one of the staples that's always been on is, sharing papers and interesting insights, science insights into all things skincare. So here are some of our favorite papers through the years.
So we got to talk about one that I think we're going to touch on again this year, because apparently sunscreens, we just need an annual reminder of all the behaviors and whatnot. So the first paper was done by J&J, where they basically wanted to compare using sunscreen versus a sun umbrella. And this paper is wonderful because they basically show that using sunscreen is still the most effective way to get proper sun protection, because even just sitting under a sun umbrella, we forget that UV has the ability to reflect on surfaces. So even on sand, it's going to reflect, and you could still get that UV damage. So I think that's such a great real world example of like how UV can affect our skin. And so anyways, that's got to be a favorite of mine.
Even if you're in the shade all day, definitely still remember to reapply that sunscreen. You may not be getting burned per se, but that UV damage, that's definitely happening.
The second one is really just for funsies. We've done a few episodes on acne, some acne myths, and there's always myths around diets. And chocolate, I think, is just that thing that people just grow up thinking chocolate causes acne. And while there's still not enough data to say yes or no, and I think of the studies done, it's just generally inconclusive, as a lot of diet, I shouldn't say a lot, but most studies, aside from glycemic index, has not shown a correlation with acne. Another favorite of ours has to be the very tiny clinical study of 5 adult males who were forced to eat 2 bars of chocolate for a month.
A day. 2 bars of chocolate a day.
Yeah, daily for a month. Thank you, Gloria. And basically, it was inconclusive. They found that, they measured sebum production and did not seem to alter sebum production. So there you go.
So
an excuse to eat chocolate every day, 2 bars.
I just find it's like one quick way to ruin a good thing. That I like me some chocolate bars, but if you force me to eat 2 a day, that's a good way to get me to swear off chocolate bars for the rest of my life.
Yeah, exactly. I think the third one, Gloria, has to be the CE Ferulic Turf War. Yes. I don't know if you guys happened to listen to that episode. We wanted to kind of paint the picture of how, there's competition everywhere and there's competition between labs. And that one was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yes. So this one, the focus was actually on vitamin C derivatives.
Yeah.
And we just looked at the history of all the different derivatives, the ones that have testing, and why we still consider ascorbic acid to be the gold standard.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, these people in the background that do the test for the different molecules, they all have a lot of field, because it started with things like MAP, magnesium ascorbyl phosphate. And some labs will come up, based on this really cool in vitro data, this is better than ascorbic acid. And then, you have the original ascorbic acid group slide in and be like, but does it do anything biologically? We think not. And then you have other people come in and with things like ascorbyl glucoside and even more industry-specific stuff like tetraisopalmitate, ascorbic acid. And it's like, but these show that it really penetrates, and oil-based vitamin C is where it's at. And it was just this crazy journey of these labs probably shaking their fist at each other from hundreds of miles apart, saying, my ascorbic acid is my vitamin C is best vitamin C. And it was all in all a pretty fun episode with a lot of science. And in general, vitamin C is still one of our favorite categories to talk about, because of these turf wars. There's a lot of science to go off of. Can be difficult to wade through because, it's just one ingredient category, vitamin C, but there's tens of molecules and hundreds of paper. Guys, sometimes it takes us a long time to compile these episodes.
I also definitely remember how it really felt like every time these like competing derivatives would come in, ascorbic acid group would come in and be like, all right, we're going to test this again, and we're going to show you how this outperforms. It's just like constantly just be like, no, sit back down, So that was generally fun.
One of our favorite papers as of late is from a very recent episode on kojic acid, and it's got to be one of those most, I don't even know how they came up with the study, but it's on goldfish and your tyrosinase inhibitors.
Yeah, so very simply, it was about kojic acid, and they wanted to know if it was a tyrosinase inhibitor. And some scientists thought it'd be like, why don't we just feed this black goldfish a tyrosinase inhibitor, dump it into their tank and see what happens. Lo and behold, this black goldfish started losing
Fading.
its color. And this is all very questionable. Let's just put it ethically, socially, this is all very questionable. But all in all, yeah, the goldfish started losing that black pigment. And Gloria and I just imagined that all of its friends were like, yo, bro, you looking a little funny there. You feeling okay?
Yeah.
You're looking a little weird. What's going on?
I just thought the person that came up with it must be a mad genius, because once they stopped the diet with the kojic acid, the goldfish went back to its original coloring. And as far as we can tell, the goldfish was fine in the long run, other than the pigment changes. But anyway, hilarious paper.
I just feel like the guy's just, its goldfish friends must be like, yo, I didn't realize you liked Michael Jackson that much. Like, you don't have to impersonate him to that degree. Anyways, all right. Next one.
Next, I really like this one for science reasons, not because of the kooky study designs. I really like this paper Victoria found on the effect of occlusives on your skin. Basically, this one looked at, petrolatum, so very, very heavy occlusive compared to a lipid-heavy cream, then compared to a more regular standard skincare emulsion. And they occlude the skin with these 3 products, and then they measure transepidermal water loss afterwards. And what they were able to show is basically transepidermal water loss spiked after you occlude the skin for a certain amount of time, and then you remove the occlusion. And it really showcases how when your skin is well occluded, because transepidermal water loss is a natural process, when your skin is occluded, it dramatically slows it down. So what you're doing is you're kind of saturating your stratum corneum. So when you remove that occlusion, all that water is like, phew, I'm free now. So I thought it was a really neat paper to showcase what occlusives really do for your skin. So if you're curious, check out the episode. And we also have a blog post on it of essentially answering the question, why should you slug and what slugging does for your skin really? So check out the episode if you want more. And last but not least, this is one of my favorite interesting science with really sad conclusion paper. And that was our...
We have a lot of those. Let's be real.
Yeah. I feel like there was one episode we called ourselves the wet blanket to your skincare aspirations. This is one of those examples. It was from the episode that we dedicated to eye creams. And eye creams is just one of those categories that have a lot of terrible science.
Womp, womp. It's just a big womp.
Yeah, and I think the ingredient that always gets put in eye creams is caffeine. And it's associated with things like curing your dark circle or even depuffing your eyes. And there was a Japanese study where instead of a topical product with caffeine, they actually had their subjects take an oral caffeine supplement. It was 100 milligrams every day. And then they were actually able to track that, it does indeed kind of decrease blood flow to the area. And the idea is that because, dark circles and puffiness is associated with blood flow in general, that it could work to reduce the appearance. But unfortunately, when I looked at it, I was like, 100 milligrams. How much is that? That's about the same amount of caffeine you get from a cup of coffee. So if you drink coffee, there you go. Save yourself some dollars on caffeine-based eye creams because you're probably doing the same thing.
And the sad part about all of that is that data is probably one of the best, I think, outcomes in terms of topical or just general caffeine and skincare, because every time we've gone down the caffeine rabbit hole, I should say, of the data available, the conclusions are so lukewarm at best. And so sadly, like, this study is one of the few that even has a takeaway here, because most caffeine products and that are tested topically, a lot of them are in blends with other actives. And that should tell you that they're not really sure if it's going to do much.
Yeah. And, I'm always waiting for one of our listeners to write in and be like, I checked out this paper you referenced. It doesn't seem legit. It's looks really sketchy. The before after pictures are not right. And I have to say, that's what we're working with, especially with something like caffeine. You just have to scrounge the bottom of the barrel to say, okay, this is not the most rigorous test, but here is some of the things some of the takeaways we can derive from it.
Totally.
That's the nature of eye creams.